So in today's class we will be discussing about animal kingdom. So we have to first understand the basics that are present in this animal kingdom and what we have to cover in this animal kingdom. So in case of animal kingdom we will be discussing about all the different types of animals that we have. Before we start our discussion, we have to understand the basics of this animal kingdom, that what are the basic things that we need to understand from this animal kingdom, or what are the basics that we need to keep in our mind while studying about this animal kingdom. Now, as you already know, that if I go from NCERT basis, so it is saying that among 1.7 to 1.8 million species that we have, nearly 1.2 millions are only animals. So the amount of animals in the organismic world, in the biological world, is huge. And make sure that you remember that these animals are multicellular, they are heterotrophic in nature, showing holozoic mode of nutrition. Now what is this holozoic mode of nutrition? I'll discuss about that one in a short span of time. They lack cell wall and they store the food in the form of glycogen and fat. Okay, so these are what animals are. Animals will be multicellular, animals will be heterotrophic, which will show the holozoic mode of nutrition. They will lack cell wall and they will store the food in the form of glycogen or fat. Now if we discuss about holozoic mode of nutrition, so what is this holozoic mode of nutrition? In case of holozoic mode of nutrition, they intake the complex organic food and they digest it internally. Their digestion occurs internally, and after the digestion they absorb the nutrients. So for example, if I take an organism, so let us suppose this is an organism. In case of holozoic mode of nutrition, it will intake the food, it will release the unused food, that is waste, and all the digestion will occur inside the organism internally, and this digested food will be absorbed inside the organism. That is what is the meaning of holozoic mode of nutrition. So holozoic mode of nutrition means it will take the food, it will digest the food internally, and it will absorb it, and whatever is left behind will be released in the form of waste. Okay, now while discussing about this animal kingdom, we know there are different types of animals. There is a very important notation that why we need to identify and differentiate and classify these animals. But some features will be there which are called the fundamental features, Those fundamental features will be common in various individuals. कुछ चीज़ जो है वो common रहेगा. In majority of the organisms, they will be having these common fundamental features. What are those? They are this arrangement of cells, body symmetry, body cavity, that is coelom, patterns of digestion, circulatory system, and reproductive system. We will be discussing about each one of these things in details, but this is the basic feature, or this is the basic fundamental features which are common in all individuals. Yes, they are common, but they will have some variations as well. Before we deep dive into this whole concept of understanding the classifications, we have to also keep in our mind the levels of organization. Now, what do you mean by the term levels of organization? As you already know from the concept of chemistry, that everything starts from an atom, then it becomes molecule. From those molecules, obviously cell organelles will be formed. These organelles will be present inside a structure called cell. These cells will make tissues. The tissues will then make organs, and finally the organs will together form an organ system inside an organism. Other than that, we also have this population, we have this biome and other stuffs, which we will be discussing in later chapters. Also, we will be discussing about these atoms and molecules in the portions of chemistry, not in biology. So in biology, we will be continuing our discussion based on how a cell is formed, and from that cell tissues are formed, from that tissue organ is formed, and from that organ a system of organs will be developed inside an organism. So each and every animals that you see around you, and each and every animals that we are going to see in this chapter, all the different phylums of the animal kingdom, their body organization will have any one of these levels, and that is why it is called levels of organization. That is why it is called what? It is called levels of organization. Okay, so organisms can show different levels of organization, different levels of organization. How is it so? Let us see. So the first level of organization is what? It is the cells. So some organism will be there which will be showing the cellular level of organization. They will have only some cells which are simple, which are going to perform some simple physiological processes, but the core concept is these organisms will only have cells. Example, obviously, example are sponge, which falls under the category of porifera. Porifera, it is a specific phylum under the animal kingdom, which we will be discussing in details. But for now, remember that these organisms, that is porifera, will show the tissue level, the cellular level organization. Next comes after the cell, when we have a cluster of cells which are performing a same type of function, in which the division of labor has occurred. What do you mean by the division of labor? So in case of an organism, you will see it is made up of a multicellular arrangement, right? So there are many cells. All the cells are not performing same function. So some specific cells will perform a specific function, and those group of cells will be referred to as what? Those group of cells will be referred to as tissues. Those group of cells will be referred to as what? They will be called tissues, right? So in some organisms we will see the tissue level organization. In some organisms we will see the tissue level organizations. For example, in case of Cnidaria, in case of Ctenophora, we will see the tissue level organization. In these organisms, that is Cnidaria and Ctenophora, they will have tissue that will perform a particular function. Next up, in some organisms we will see organs. They will develop organs in them. Which will perform a particular function. Examples are platyhelminths. And then after, we will have organisms which will have organ system, starting from Aschelmanthus to Chordata. Okay, we will be discussing about each one of them in more details. Obviously, we will be discussing the phylums one after another, but this is the basic understanding of the different levels of organization that you are going to see in this chapter. So some organisms will have cellular arrangement, some of them will have tissue arrangement, some of them will have organ in them, some of them will have organ system, and obviously they will develop into a complete organism. As I have told you that this portion of the video is only about the different types of basic things that we need to know. The next concept is about the body plan, and specifically, if I want to tell, it is about the digestion process. So what happens in the process of digestion? I guess you have already have a brief idea about digestion. So what happens in case of a digestion? The food is taken up by an organism. by an organism and the unwanted, unused food is released in the form of waste. That is what is the function of digestive system. They will take the food, they will take the complex food from outside, right? They will take the complex food from outside, and after that it will be digested, and unwanted, unused food will be released in the ecosystem or in the environment as waste. So there can be three different types of body plan, in which we will see the first type and the most simplest type of body plan is a cell aggregation, in which they contain only cells, no tissues or organ. They will have only cells, no tissues and organ, and it will take the food, it will digest the food, and it will release the food directly by the process of diffusion and other means, which we will be discussing in much more detail when we will discuss about the different phylums. Another category of body plan is having the blind sac. Sir, what is blind sac? Blind sac means, see, if I draw a diagram here, like this of a organism, of a simplified organism, this is not any diagram of a complete organism. So in these organisms, what we will see, where we have a blind sac, the food enters, the food enters, as well as the waste is released, from the single opening, from a single opening, right? So blind sac, in case of blind sac arrangement of body plan, they will contain only one opening that act as both mouth and anus. Now talking about the third category of body plan, that is tube in tube arrangement. What happens in tube in tube is they will have two different opening, one opening for taking the food, and other opening for releasing the waste. The one which is taking the food will be called mouth, and the one which is releasing the waste is referred to as anus. For example, in case of higher organisms which falls under the mammalian category like us, we have a tube like structure called the alimentary canal, and it has a separate mouth and it has a separate anus. Mouth is used for intaking the food, and anus is obviously for releasing the waste. Now the next concept that we have to keep in our mind while studying about this whole animal kingdom is about the symmetry of the organism. Is about what? It is about the symmetry of the organism. So some organisms will be there which will show radial symmetry, some organisms will show bilateral symmetry, and some organisms will be asymmetrical in nature. What is the meaning of this one? If you see this starfish, if you see this example of starfish, then you will see that the starfish can be divided into some equal halves based on the central axis. So this is our central axis, and from this central axis we can divide this organism into different equal parts. Such kind of symmetry will be referred to as what? It will be referred to as radial symmetry, where the plane that is cutting the whole organism, you are not actually cutting the organism, but if you see a starfish, you can see that each of its arms can be taken out separately, and it will form equal halves. Right? It will form different equal halves. So in that case, we will call it that the organism is radially symmetrical. Okay. Now in the second case, where we have bilateral symmetry, you can see the organism can be divided into two planes, across one axis. So like in case of radial symmetry, we had multiple axes. In case of bilateral symmetry, we will have only one axis that divides the complete organism into two equal halves, right? As you can see in this diagram of a housefly. The last condition is asymmetrical condition, in which you don't have any axis which can break the organism into two equal halves. For example, if I draw this axis, it is not going to break the organism into two equal halves. Neither this axis can break, right? So there is no axis which can break the organism into equal halves, and that is why they are called asymmetrical organisms. Now, talking about the diploblastic and triploblastic arrangement, we know that we organisms or we animals are made up of multicellular arrangement, and in this multicellular arrangement there can be two different types of cellular arrangements. One in which we have two layers and the other in which we have three layers. Okay, one in which we have two layers and the other one in which we have three layers. So see, animals in which cells are arranged into two embryonic layers, they are called diploblastic organism. They are called what? They are called diploblastic organism. Example, this case, that is, this is the cellular arrangement in case of the diploblastic organism. What they have? They have an extracellular layer called ectoderm, and they have intercellular layer that is called endoderm. So ectoderm is our outer layer. It is our outer layer, and this endoderm is our inner layer. This outer layer also called ectoderm, and this inner layer that is called endoderm is separated by an undifferentiated cellular mass that is called mesoglia. So this mesoglia is what? It is an undifferentiated layer that is present between ectoderm and endoderm. That is what is written here. So we will have an external layer that is called ectoderm, we will have an internal layer that is called endoderm, and an undifferentiated layer is present between ectoderm and endoderm called mesoglia. Okay, now discussing about the triploblastic organism, where we have three different layers of cells. So those animals in which the developing embryo has three germinal layers, mesoderm in between ectoderm and endoderm, are called triploblastic organisms. So in these organisms, like in this case of triploblastic organisms, we will have an ectoderm, which is the outer layer, we will have an endoderm, which is a inner layer, and we will have mesoderm, which is the middle layer present between ectoderm and endoderm. We will have three layers as it is represented here, that is the ectoderm, that is the external layer, mesoderm, that is the middle layer, and internal layer, that is called the endoderm. As simple as that. Now the next category or the next basic understanding that we should have is about the coelom. Sir, what is coelom? Coelom is basically, we can write coelom means body cavity. It means what? It means body cavity. Okay, so coelom means what? It is the body cavity. So based on the presence or absence of this body cavity between what? Between the body wall and the gut, we can do a separate basis of classification. So let us try to understand how animals can be classified based on that they have a cavity between the body wall or the gut, and the gut, and if it is present or not present. So see, when the body cavity is absent, when the body cavity is absent, like in this case, if you see this condition, in this condition you will have an external layer, external layer, and at the center you can see the gut. Now there is no gap, there is no gap, there is no gap between the external body wall and the gut, and such kind of organisms where this coelom is absent, they are called what? They are called acoelomates. They are called what? They are called acoelomates. They are called what? They are called acoelomates. Example, obviously the platyhelminths, they don't have any kind of coelom that is present. Okay. The second category is this one. The second category is this one, in which you can see that coelom is present but it is not complete. The coelom is present but it is not complete. The cavity is present but it is not complete. So this is your gut, this is your gut, this is your external body wall, this is your external body wall, but between them what we have some scattered mesoderm. We have some scattered mesoderm. It is not a compact one. Such kind of condition is called what? Such kind of condition is called pseudocoelomate. Such kind of condition is called pseudocoelomate. Okay, example is Aschelmanthus. Fine. And the last one in which there is a presence of body cavity. So the body cavity in which is lined by the mesoderm is called coelom, and animals that contain this coelom are called what? They are called coelomates. Example, this condition. This is the condition that we are talking about. This is the condition that we are talking about. So here, as you can see, here we have the central portion that is called the gut. Here we have the body wall, and in between them we have this cavity. We have this cavity. We have this cavity called coelom. We have this cavity called coelom, right? So in these kind of, or these categories of organisms will be called coelomate organisms. They will be called as coelomate organisms. Other than that, we have the segmentation and notochord. Though there are two more things that I need to discuss. One is about the circulatory system, and obviously some more basic things that we will be discussing in the next class. But let us discuss about this segmentation and notochord. So what do you mean by the term segmentation? Segmentation means that in some animals the body is externally and internally divided into some segments, which is basically the serial repetition of at least some organs. Okay, for example, if you see this organism, its body is segmented. You can see these lines, right? So if you see any insect, or if you see earthworm, you will see that their body is segmented, right? Their body is what? Their body is segmented. So this segmentation can either present internally, or it can be present externally, or it can be present internally. Okay, but this segmentation can be there. So we will see segmentation in some phylum, in some organisms of a particular phylum. And lastly, talking about the notochord. So what is notochord? Notochord is a mesodermally rod-like structure formed on the dorsal side. Which side? Formed on the dorsal side. During the embryonic development. So if you see this diagram, it shows the notochord very well. So this one, what you can see is called the notochord. It's called what? It is called the notochord. It is a rod-like structure formed on the dorsal side of the organism during its embryonic development. Okay, so this is called notochord. This is called what? It is called notochord. Okay, and other than that, you can see the other structures are also present, like the mouth is present, like the anus is present, right? So since we are discussing about the notochord itself, so we'll keep our discussion to notochord only. So if an organism contains a notochord, they are called chordates, and if an organism do not contain notochord, they are called non-chordates. Okay, so in the next upcoming classes, we will be discussing about the other basic things, and then we will move into discussion of each and every